Welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices, the podcast dedicated to bringing you diverse, innovative leadership insights and actionable strategies for success. Join hosts Laura McNeil and Bob Medeiros as they explore the art and science of role model leadership through thought-provoking conversations with real professionals. Whether you're a seasoned leader or aspiring to excellence, Sterling Visionary Voices is your guide to navigating the complexities of your leadership journey.
Hello and welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices. I'm your host, Bob Medeiros, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, Mr. Bill Allen. Now, Bill is the plant manager of VEETHREE Electronics in Bradenton, Florida, a manufacturing hub and electronics engineering base for displays and gauges, supporting hundreds of OEMs across the globe. With over 30 years of experience in manufacturing, Bill's career runs the gamut from management trainee through general manager at Genuine Parts Company in Wisconsin. He's had years of experience in operations for Teleflex Incorporated through to his current role at VEETHREE Electronics, where he's been the plant manager since 2009. Now, hailing from a small town outside of Columbus, Ohio, Bill and his wife have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Bill, it is so nice to have you here on Sterling Visionary Voices.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to our discussions today.
Excellent. So let's start off. How about sharing a little bit with our listeners about your organization, VEETHREE Electronics, based there in Bradenton, Florida?
Well, VEETHREE Electronics was acquired the Teleflex operation back in 2009. And VEETHREE was a supplier to us at the time, and they recognized the opportunity to have a manufacturing facility in North America. Originally, they have a very large manufacturing facility in Faridabad, India, and they felt like they needed to have a presence here in North America, and it was very attractive to them. And since knowing the owners for quite a while through the supply chain, they wanted to leave the factory here in North America. I'm proud to say we saved 55 jobs here in North America in the manufacturing phase. And we presently today have about 80 employees, 80 to 85 employees. We are part of now a global organization. We have a software and design manufacturer, or not manufacturing, just a software office in Poole, England. We have our large manufacturing facility in Faridabad, India. We have a distribution network out of New Zealand that handles the Pacific Rim. And then we also own a glass company in Naugatuck, Connecticut, which is a little, not off the gamut of instrumentation, but all of our instruments, 95% of our instruments are glass related, and they're a very viable supplier. And I'm sure we'll get into that risk mitigation and a little bit of why we acquired them. But we serve worldwide. Our 2 main segments of business is in the marine industry and in the industrial market.
Well, I appreciate helping ground me in the background of VEETHREE. And I think when we're talking about supply chain and risk mitigation in there, I think we're going to really touch on a lot of what you've just brought up. Just to ground everyone, we've labeled this episode Mitigating Risk in a Changing World. So, Bill, tell me a little about what you think this topic means to you.
I think we learned a lot from COVID. And one of the things we learned is preparing, being proactive as opposed to being reactive. And one of the things that started a lot of this was, and we all know that during the COVID situation, supply chain, there were plenty of supply chain concerns, shortages of supplies. There were resource issues as far as, people staying home and trying to get people to come to work, the resource issues. We were operating businesses, during these conditions of trying to keep our facilities going. And I think we learned from that we need to be better prepared for not only those type of things, but now that we're in a global situation, we are a global economy. We have to prepare for all those things and put proactive steps in place to be able to handle those risks. And V3 has been a part of that. And then the other reason that we feel a strong need of that is we are ISO 9001:2015 certified. And a lot of the changes in the ISO policy details that a business or company needs to be prepared for any risks that may affect their business. And so that's one of the reasons why, we started looking at, and I'm sure we'll get into that too, of why we started looking at Sterling as well, is because of the opportunities to partner with them to help us identify and become better in our processes here in manufacturing.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up the ISO 9001, because I was taking a note as you were talking. I thought, ooh, that'll be a great question for me to ask, but you already got to it. But
yeah, I think it's important, to every business to recognize, because we know the effect that COVID had on our business. You have to be prepared for those. Now, we hope, and we have some, and I know we'll get into that discussion too. We have a couple of different processes and ways that we're looking at that now in our business that we weren't looking at back in 2020 when COVID hit. So I think being proactive as opposed to reactive is the way to go.
There you go. All right. Well, you mentioned that, these are some pretty volatile times right now for any manufacturer, especially if your business model includes a global aspect of your supply chain, which yours does. How do you work to try to mitigate that risk for your organization?
Well, one of the big things for us is we're fortunate that we have our facility in India. We have our facility in England. We even have our facility in New Zealand and around the world. So one of the opportunities for us was that we needed to continue to build stronger relationships with those locations in this global economy. Having those relationships allows us to have what I call boots on the ground. And by having people in those areas to solidify and work stronger relationships with that supply base, our supply chain, we were looking across not only in North America but across the whole world, and I think that was a big help to us as we progressed through the whole pre-COVID and post-COVID stages of the issues we had with the supply chain. I think the other thing that we've tried to do to mitigate that risk, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but our organization felt it was critical enough to bring to the forefront as part of our documentation for the for our ISO certification, and we've been recognized for that through ISO. And I think even Sterling, when we were vying for the manufacturers award, I think that was one of the things that maybe helped us get that award, and that is we came up with what we called a SWOT analysis. And basically the SWOT analysis talks about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We as a management group look at that at a minimum every 6 months and update that SWOT analysis that helps us look at where are our risks, where are we strong, where are we weak, where do we need to improve, what are our opportunities out there. And the whole management group gets involved in that, and we look at that. And Bob, what we've come up with is we kind of use a PFEMA type theory when we look at that, because what we want to do is we want to grade it. We want to know, what do we do well and what do we not do well? And then we grade that and we look at, okay, now we know what that grade is. Now we know what those risks are. Now, what are our recommendations and what are our proactive action plans to be able to mitigate if those risks were to come about?
Yep, it sounds like a classic FMEA approach or PFMEA.
PFMEA approach, and it is. And one of the things that I'll bring up is, and we recognized this about 2 years ago. We had a competitor which we felt like could become a risk to some of our business practices going down the road if they were to be acquired. Recently, they were acquired. So we were proactive in understanding and looking at what that possibility could be. But the good thing about that is our recommended actions we had started putting in place even prior to this competitor of ours being bought and causing some possible revenue shortages to the business. When those things happen and you see that work, you know you're on the right track. Now, are we going to recognize every single one? Probably not. But we're going to be proactive and trying to identify what those risks are, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great example of being proactive. That way you look at it and you go, this isn't the first time we talked about that particular competitor getting bought out. I mean, we've already
identified that.
and had time to think through it. So you're not just reacting.
That's correct.
Very good. I guess I saw a quote the other day from one of the co-founders of Pixar, who said that it's not the manager's job to prevent risk. It's more the manager's job to make it safe to take them. Taking those educated risks are really a key part of competing in a global environment. How do you determine when to mitigate that risk, when to just completely avoid it, and when to go and take those calculated risks?
Well, I one of the things I jotted down and I started looking at this is, to avoid a risk, I think one of the things would be that, if something like a lawsuit or a financial loss or a reputable damage could occur, maybe those are the things you obviously want to avoid. The other thing, sometimes it's impossible to control or predict, but if you don't have the instruments like the SWOT analysis, and you don't have the expertise of your management group around you and the people that you can rely on, then I would say avoid that risk. If the risk takes you outside your lane, where your competitive advantage, don't follow. You can't follow. On the mitigating a risk, I think the couple things there is, if you have to have, again, the controls, the processes, and the buffers in place to be able to at least recognize those type things. Some examples, that we really look at is technology. For us being in electronics, we try and stay really close to the technology. Technology, as we all know, is changing dramatically every day.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're staying close to the technology. We want to make sure we have all the quality controls in place in our business. We're dealing with instrumentation that, if you're out on a boat and our fuel gauge doesn't work or it's not reading properly, you're in trouble. That's all I'm going to say. So we're not going to shortchange our quality for anything. And so those are the things that I think you have to try and stay close to your values, stay close to your mission, stay close to what your quality controls are. And if there's anything that could affect those, then don't do it.
There you go. Very good. Hey, you had mentioned before that your facility, and I'll bring it up again, that your facility was recognized as a gold winner of the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Award back in 2023. Could you share with our listeners a little bit about how you decided to pursue that award and the process that V3 Electronics followed that led to that recognition?
Well, I'll say this. We didn't get it the first year.
Okay.
we learned from Sterling, because one of the things we pursued and why we pursued it so hard was that what they do is they evaluate your business. But probably the biggest takeaway from this that I want to let the listeners really hear is this: they provide feedback on your operation, and that feedback is critical and it was critical for our success. Feedback was very constructive. It was very honest. And I recommend to our listeners that are listening to this to follow that, because that is a huge payback from Sterling, is that feedback that they give you as you pursue the Business Excellence Award. Even if you don't get it, that in itself is worth pursuing the Business Excellence Award. And when we got that, I'm trying to remember if it was the first or second year before we got the gold award, we followed the process. We followed what their recommendations were. And it's been instrumental to our organization of getting us to where we are today. And it also was a big help to us when we go through our ISO audit. We do an audit every 6 months. We present this feedback and these opportunities for improvement that we've gotten from Sterling, and it's been instrumental and recognized by our audit company to be very positive. So I can't say enough about businesses pursuing this, because it's not only winning the award. Yes, that's the top of the mountain, but it's the feedback, the relationships, and it's also getting involved in the conference and taking advantage of all the training opportunities. And I just, it's something that I would recommend any manufacturer to pursue.
That's very interesting, because it really, it kind of comes down to, if you pursue it because you're looking for a plaque, that might be a great end game, but to really leverage the feedback, that independent feedback, because you're getting folks from all different industries and sectors that are applying that, that Sterling framework, and yeah, that's great that you have such a good perspective, and that your facility itself continue to pursue it, implement the feedback, where applicable, and continue to pursue it until ultimately you won in 23, I guess, the gold award.
Yes, it was wonderful, and it was great, like you said. It was great to finally achieve that. And I think the main thing for us was obviously to better our business, to really understand. Sometimes you get caught up in the day-to-day operations of your business, and you don't see, the outside and the things that you really need to improve on. And that's where Sterling came in. And that's where, when they came in and they analyzed and started looking at our business and giving us that feedback, we could then sit back and say, you know what, we can improve that. That's the continual improvement process. And that's what we did. One particular case, and I remember this, where we needed to improve, was the communication amongst our senior management group was good. We had processes in place where we have monthly dashboard meetings. We have senior management, what we call war meetings. That information, and Sterling brought this up, that information wasn't getting down to our main folks on the production floor. So we changed that. And those have paid huge dividends for our organization now that, we're all rowing in the same direction. We all have the same business goals. And that was lacking until Sterling came in and recognized that, and we worked with them to put those processes in place.
Excellent. Well, since becoming a Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Award winner, I understand you've joined the Sterling Council Board of Directors. What are your thoughts on that organization and your engagement in the board so far?
Well, I'll say this: there's a lot of I thought I had 32 years of experience. I had a lot of experience, but when you look and you add up all the years of experience on the board of directors, and you look at the participation of the people that are involved in Sterling, it can't compare with the amount of experience that they bring to not only, manufacturing, but all aspects of business. And the other thing that's great is I get a chance to interact with those folks and get a chance to learn from them, which I think is important. I don't ever want to stop learning, because it makes us better, our company better. And the more I learn, the more I try and give that back to our business and our employees. My job really on the board of directors has changed. I look at it this way, and I'm reminded by Phil a lot on this, that my job now is to bring manufacturers to Sterling. That's where I see my job, in bringing more manufacturers to Sterling so that they can learn, they can become better, they can take the Sterling business process and apply that to their business. And I would say this, the pinnacle, the top of the mountain, is, I can't express enough or paint this picture any more beautiful than the fact of seeing 13 of our middle managers and our folks in manufacturing up on stage, and their faces when they received that plaque. They still talk about that today. We post that gold award in our trophy case in our lobby. Our folks are very proud of that. And to me, that was the pinnacle. That was the top of the mountain, of having them up there on stage, getting the recognition that they deserve.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it's good to hear that you're considering it an opportunity to spread the good news of Sterling amongst manufacturers in the Southeast, because
well, and that's where I feel, as being a board member, that's my response. That's our responsibility.
There you go.
But that's my responsibility to assist and to make sure that.
Well, very good. Well, Bill, I'm looking at the clock. I really want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights into mitigating risk in a changing world. It's really been my pleasure having this conversation as a former, if there's such a thing as a former manufacturing quality guy.
I don't know if you ever get out of that, do you, Bob?
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. But so thank you very much for joining us, Bill. And for you folks out there, this is really all the time we have for today. I want to thank you all for joining us here at Sterling Visionary Voices. To hear this and other episodes, just go to sterlingvisionaryvoices.com. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Sterling Visionary Voices, Insights for Role Model Leadership from the Sterling Council. Discover more and connect with us at sterlingvisionaryvoices.com.